In 2018, a directory traversal vulnerability was found in the File Manager plugin for WordPress, which allowed attackers to upload and execute malicious files on the vulnerable website. So the vulnerability was caused by a lack of sanitization of user input in the path parameter of the plugin's code, which allowed attackers to traverse the server's directory structure and upload or execute files outside of the intended directory. This affected over 700,000 websites and highlights the importance of implementing proper input validation and sanitization in web applications. And that's why in this video we are going to look at directory traversal vulnerability, how they occur, some examples, and most importantly, how to prevent them. So what is directory traversal? As we saw, this vulnerability allows an attacker to access files and directories outside the web root folder. An attack occurs when an application does not properly sanitize user input. Let's have a look at this example. This is a vulnerable PHP code. This code takes a file name as input from the user via the getParameter file, and then includes the content of that file within the PHP script. Now, an attacker can bypass this using a payload that looks something like this. We know that // is used to go one directory back in Linux. So by using // 3 times, an attacker can go 3 directories back and then access the sensitive files such as the etc password file. Have a look at this diagram to make more sense. Here's the attacker, and he can send a payload, something like this, to the server. The server was intended to fetch a normal file from the normal directory, as we can see over there, but because of the payload, the server will try to fetch a private file from the private directory. Obviously, we are assuming that there is absolutely no sanitization going on over here. That's why a simple payload like this is working. It really depends on the application. Sometimes the application might be sanitizing, but still can be exploited. We will look at this later. To understand this, let's have a look at the practical demonstration. And for that, I'm using Portsugar Lab. The application is a typical e-commerce website that contains products, and you can click on each product to see its details. I have turned on my BUD proxy and it is capturing requests behind the scenes. A quick note, there are 2 ways to solve this lab. You can do this directly from the browser or by using a tool like Burp Suite. I'll be using Burp Suite for a better view of requests and responses. Okay, back to the application. Here we can see the different number of products that are being fetched using a particular product ID. Also, by default, you cannot view JPG requests. To filter them, you must use the filter settings in the HTTP history filter tab. In this particular request, we can see an image is being fetched through this file name parameter, and the name of the file is 6.jpg. I'm going to send this request to repeater. And this is how it looks like when you send the request normally. Now I'm going to inject a payload here. This is the basic payload that we saw earlier. Send the request, and it says 400 bad request. So this payload is not working. Let's see how we can bypass this. I'm going to add double more dots and a double slash. And in the request, we can see the password file. Now you must be thinking what actually happened. So let me decode this for you. What's going on is that the application is truncating double dot. So I used 4 dots to bypass this. If the initial payload is .. the backend will truncate 2 dots and the result will be .. The backend will then process .. to go back one directory and show us the required result, leading to successful exploitation. So this was an easy bypass. Sometimes it can be a little more difficult. If you want to learn more about directory traversal payloads and how to use them to attack in different scenarios, you can check out this GitHub page. I'll give the link in the description. Now let's talk about prevention measures. Obviously, the first measure is to perform input validation and sanitization. Ensure that all the user input is properly validated and sanitized before being used in a file path or URL, just like we saw in the previous case. So this can include disallowing certain characters like slash or dot or some other characters like ampersand. Another thing you can do is configure the web server to prevent directory traversal. This can include setting up access controls and disabling directory indexing. You can use frameworks and libraries that are secure and have built-in protecting against directory traversal attacks. And the last thing, keep all the software and applications up to date with the latest security patches and updates. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and also don't forget to check out the blog as well. I'll give the link in the description.